Here to introduce the next seminar is Marla Cook, Manager of Sales Shows with the National Cowboy and Western Heritage Museum.
Hello. Our next seminar, The Life and Grand Canyon Art of Curt Walters, will be moderated by Michael Clawson, Executive Editor of Western Art Collector and Native American Art magazines, author of 4 books on contemporary artists, and the host of the American Art Collective podcast. Please join me in welcoming Michael Clawson.
Thank you, and thank you for having me today. Today, our distinguished guest to the stage was born in Las Cruces, New Mexico, but raised across the state in Farmington near the Four Corners region. At the age of 13, he confiscated his sister's paint set, which was quickly put to good use. Within 2 years, he was selling paintings to friends and neighbors. 5 years later, he was winning regional art awards and showing in professional settings. In 1973, he attended the inaugural Prix de West exhibition as a visitor, and has since returned many times as an artist. Today, he is widely known for his paintings of the Southwest, including locations in his home state of Arizona, and most notably, the Grand Canyon. He has won numerous awards all around the country, including top awards from this very stage. He is here to talk to us today about his remarkable career, as well as his new book, which just recently won the gold medal for the Coffee Table Book of the Year, as well as the silver medal for art books for the 2026 Forward Indies Award. Before he comes out, let's watch a short video.
Hello, my name is Damian Foreman, writer and grandson of award-winning artist Curt Walters. I had the unique opportunity to help him share his story in my book, Resilience. Today, I'd like to share some of my writings. Northern New Mexico was a delightful landscape, but there was a greater challenge calling his name, the Grand Canyon. Curt said, "On my first visit to Grand Canyon in the summer of 1969, I watched massive thunderheads build over the rim. I was transfixed as the ancient chasm pried the rain and lightning from the clouds while cradling the temples in patches of glowing sunlight. Countless emotions welled up inside me. Grand Canyon sorcery changed my life forever." Alan Peterson writes, "In roughly 140 years of artists painting the Grand Canyon, none have approached the subject with greater passion and determination than Curt Walters. While he has made many paintings of other compelling subjects, his dedication to capturing the Grand Canyon with authenticity, quality, and quantity reveals that this singular muse informs everything else that he has produced during his monumental career." Katrina Rogers wrote in her foreword, "The first time Curt saw the Grand Canyon, he felt like he belonged there." It is a remarkable moment when someone finds a sense of place in a landscape. Of Powell Point, Curt notes, quote, "I was literally falling in love with Grand Canyon." Belonging and love, these are among the most fundamental needs of human beings in pursuit of living a life of meaning and passion. Driven by societal norms to marry early, thereby denying his true self, Curt expressed in his early paintings his love of openness and freedom. Alongside reflecting on what he cared about in the landscape of the Southwest and the Colorado Plateau, we can see in his work a yearning to be himself. Curt wrote, "Every one of my Grand Canyon paintings has a purpose, be it a story of today's changing air and environment, or a record of the sheer beauty of the season and the place. I adhered without compromise to what I saw and felt, and through that focus, I found my artistic voice." In spring, I rush out the door with paint set in hand, eager for the challenges in the new year. Nature is fickle and prone to sudden changes in mood and temperament, especially in Arizona, where spring-like weather can begin before the vernal equinox. I love its unpredictability and the abundance of visual opportunities. At the Grand Canyon, I have painted in short-sleeve shirts in early February, and I've bundled up in a coat during an April snowstorm. I fill my palette with variations of reds, blues, greens, yellows, and earth tones, knowing that I may or may not touch them at all. I must be ready for changes in atmosphere and color temperature. Every time I blink, the visual dynamics of Grand Canyon change. I address each of these moments with the utmost sincerity. There is no better way to learn about the Grand Canyon and about yourself than to raft the full length of the waters at the bottom of that magnificent gorge. I jog my memories of those experiences by returning time and time again to my sketchbooks, and only wish that I had sketched more. Hiking the trails of Grand Canyon fills my spirit with wonder. Due to my dyslexia, scientific classifications and proper names are hard for me to retain, but I have never once let that stop my hunt for information surrounding the Grand Canyon. I have shelves of literature to keep my memory fresh, and I carry a variety of maps with me on all my hikes, which I use to reference topography and geology. In my studio, these maps prove invaluable. Nothing that I read, however, can put the Grand Canyon's size into perspective better than being inside it. While hiking its trails, I have encountered countless pinnacles of stone. These canyon guardians stare down like medieval statues, protecting the environmentally sensitive alcoves and amphitheaters. Canyoneering stories, ancient mysteries, and artists from the Romantic era come alive in my imagination deep in the abyss. Sometimes I wonder, if my paintings had personalities, what would they say? Would they divulge the conversations that have taken place about them? Would they share my secrets? And most of all, do they evoke the feeling that I, the artist, wanted to share? I ask these questions most often in the quiet of winter. On my first winter trip to Grand Canyon in 1972, a quiet, deep snow blanketed the rim as I arrived at Hermit's Rest. I swear to this day that I felt the spirits of Thomas Moran and Carl Oscar Borg beside the great stone fireplace. Should my spirit ever return for an earthly visit, I hope it's to the Grand Canyon for a winter storm.
Please welcome to the stage Curt Walters.
Hello. Hi, guys. Thank you.
Back on the stage.
Right, we are ready to go.
It's exciting to be here. The first words of your book are, "Artistry comes before the first stroke is taken." When did you first realize you wanted to be a painter?
I know it sounds strange, but I was actually 6, 7 years old. And I think all the artists in here would know and understand that. You have an instinct about wanting to draw and paint, and I was surrounded. One of the great things that happened is I was surrounded by art in my home, not great art, but a lot of it, some of it created by my father, and so there was an inborn instinct in me to want to paint.
You talk a lot about your parents in the book.
Yeah.
Your mother bought you your art supplies secretly without your father knowing. But the book makes it very, very clear that you loved and admired your parents and the way that they sacrificed for your art career. What was it like growing up in Farmington, New Mexico?
Growing up in Farmington was actually rather difficult for me. Because of my dyslexia, I had trouble in school, really hard time in school. The worst thing in the world, the most frightening, terrifying thing in the world to me is the spelling bee. I just was not good at it, and I really wasn't good at sports, and I felt very uncomfortable in my life through school, and that's the reality of it. I didn't really like it. The thing that happened to me is that I really wanted to paint. I begged my parents for a paint set. My sister, as I mentioned before, my father had given my sister a paint set. And so it didn't take me too long to steal it. And so I took, a felon was a Curt. I stole her paint set. My mother recognized that I needed art, I wanted art. And yet what was happening is that the teachers were telling my parents not to give me art supplies or to give me paper because I was draw in class, and I would draw everything. I would draw, and they thought it was distracting from my work, from my schoolwork. So anyway, my parents, were on this place, but my mother would get me art supplies, and so I finally won I won a second place ribbon in the San Juan County Fair when I was 13. I won my first blue ribbon for the junior division, of course, when I was 14. And so I think that convinced my parents that I was on a road that I wasn't turning back, and I was pretty serious.
What kind of subjects were you painting in Farmington? What was the scenery like there?
I started out painting subjects around my home, of course, which was the little Plata Valley. We lived on the farm. I painted pictures of the house, of the barns. My first painting was actually of the barn. And it was a great historic Gambell roof barn, and a very attractive place. And so anyway, I did a lot of paintings of the valley in those days. And that's kind of where it started.
I would imagine one of the most popular questions you get asked is, what was your first experience like at the Grand Canyon? Share that with our audience here today.
Well, I had, a few things came together which were really sort of interesting. All right after, I went to the junior college because I couldn't get in because of my scores and my ST scores. Anyway, you know what I mean. And into the New Mexico State. And so my parents and the teachers said, you should go to the branch of New Mexico State in Farmington. And so that's right after high school, in my first class in English, and my professor, Olin Jeffries, said, Curt, you wrote a nice paper, but you spelled every word wrong, and I know what's wrong with you. And it's the first time I ever heard the word dyslexic. And so he explained to me what I was doing, shifting letters and numbers. And so I came, and he said, Curt, you're smart. That was the first time ever in my life that I'd been told I was smart, because I really was told hundreds of times that I was rather stupid. And so it gave me a sense of self-confidence. And then my dad got me a car, and then I said, I'm going to take a trip by myself. I sold a painting, a shiprock painting, for $15 at the country store. Gas was 32 cents a gallon. I had enough money to buy a roll of film, and off I went to Grand Canyon by myself. And I entered the park, and it was the most amazing thing that I'd ever seen. And I loved it. I just loved it from that moment. I tried to paint. It was humiliating, but it gave me a sense of this. I must do this. I must learn to paint it. And that's really what happened.
Do you remember some of the details? Was it North Rim, South Rim?
It's South Rim. I entered by the East Gate. My first view was Desert View. I woke up, I slept in my car. The next morning, I went to Powell Point to paint. And so Powell Point has this very special meaning to me. It's a place of birth of my art, and it really was. It was kind of a very special place.
I'm curious to know, you've been going to the park for a long time. Has it changed at all?
Well, the park is, yes. There used to be a little more access and freedom to get to the park. It's different now. It's one of the most visited parks in the United States, and so, in the world actually. And so there's, it doesn't have the access that it had when I was young, but that's okay. There's more trails, which by the way I helped do. But anyway, it was kind of, I don't know, it's a little different now. It's like all national parks.
You have mentioned your love for the work of Thomas Moran. He was one of your heroes. Of course, he was someone who painted the Grand Canyon. How did you develop your own voice when it came to painting the canyon? On my first trip to Grand Canyon, which was another first for my canyon visit, is that I saw the work of not only Thomas Moran,
but Carl Oscar Borg and Gunnar Wiedforst was the one that really sort of took my heart at that point. There was an exhibition at the park, which was the Santa Fe Railroad artist. And if you know the history of the Santa Fe Railroad, they collected lots of Grand Canyon art as part of their journey into the West. But those paintings had a huge effect on me. And so, I was only 19 then. But by the time I was 21, I really had started to develop my own sense of, those guys taught me a lesson that art, you can see Grand Canyon through the artist's eyes, and that's the real trick. And so I think I was starting to develop a sense of my own art by the time I was 21, of the way I felt about the canyon.
The book features these amazing pictures of you in areas where visitors are not encouraged to go. In fact, they probably would get tickets these days if they would paint from these locations. When you're on location like this, painting these scenes, what are you feeling? What are you looking for? What things are you keying into that goes into your work?
There's a couple of factors that go into those moments. One is this painting going to be a big painting in the studio afterwards? If that's the case, I try to paint a more comprehensive painting, so as a direction for a better composition, and I look for a foreground and all the stuff. But I always look for the quality of light. You have to keep in your head what is going to happen the next 2 hours of your painting, 3 hours in your painting, and so you can understand the light and the shadows and where the sun's going and the forms and the pattern of light that will happen as the sun starts to move. And then I look for the quality of the light, because sometimes the light is pink and the shadows are turquoise, or the light can be blue and the shadows orange, and all those sorts of things that happen and that you have to think about when you're working at the canyon. And those are the kinds of thoughts that go through my head. Sometimes I'll paint 6 or 7 paintings in preparation for a big canvas. Like I have 25 canvases of points of. I'll get it done one of these days. I'll get it done, but I do a lot of that sort of thing. And so there you go.
It's mentioned in the video, and you've kind of touched on it now, but you have to be willing to adapt to the color at any given moment, because the color changes there frequently, the light.
Yeah, it does change, and so I always I'm not a limited palette kind of guy, and I keep I keep everything on my palette because I like a lot of variation and convenience colors, and I'll start painting. I don't always use them, but I pay real close attention to the quality of the light and the color in the air, and that's the way I do it.
There's a portion of the book where you talk about, most people go to the canyon, it's going to be a sunny day, let's go see the canyon. But you wait until the clouds start rolling in, and that's when you go.
I would much rather have weather. I love weather. I love the changes I love the clouds moving and the light patterns and all that sort of thing. I really like the storms, actually. So I watch the weather cams, and they have some great ones up the Grand Canyon now, and so you can tune in and you know exactly what kind of day it is, and that's the day I go when it's really stormy.
We saw a little bit of your rafting trips. Tell us about why you did those and what those sort of informed for you.
They were most understanding the geology of the Grand Canyon is the only really way you can paint it and understand those giant forms and all those layers of color that are there. And so my trick was, I first started doing a lot of hiking in the canyon, and then finally in 1998 I got a chance to raft the Grand Canyon with the Grand Canyon Trust, which led to a great trip with a group of artists, and Joe Bowler and Matt Smith were on that trip, but we rafted the Grand Canyon together, and it was like one of the first sort of like artist trips to ever really go down the Grand Canyon. And we all came out with great art, and it did make a difference. Anyway, those guys taught me a lot about seeing the eyes through their compositional instincts were important to me, and here we are. I had a great trip down in 2002 with the Grand Canyon National Park, and they stopped and let me paint wherever I wanted to along the way, and it was pretty amazing to go with the Park Service, and I was very kind of special, and it was like a singular artist on this just for me trip.
How many days are these trips?
Oh, I think that trip was 5 days, I think, but it was really crazy. It was fun. It was so much fun.
Real estate on the boat is in tight supply. What do you pack so you can paint?
I have on that trip I took, because they are small rafts, I took a small Pashad box, and I only did 8x10s and 6x8s, and they would fit in my little box, and it's called a Pashad box. It's a compact painting set, and so I could take those along. And everything has to fit inside of a dry bag when you're going down the raft, on the small rafts, because it gets really wet sometimes.
We're sitting in this great hall here with all these Wilson Hurley paintings. You knew Wilson very early in your career. In fact, he critiqued some of your early work and famously told you, "Damn it, Curt, paint the form." At one point, he waved his hand in front of your work. This is a segment of the book. He waved his hand in front of your work, and you had a breakthrough. What was your breakthrough at that moment?
I had understood the principles of form. We're talking about shapes, 5 shades of light, cast shadows, all those things. I understood in a small form, which is like sit on a table, like in the still life. You can see a ball, you can see a square, you see a triangle, you see all those things. All of that understood was clear in my head, and I was getting it in parts of my painting. But when Wilson waved his hand across this hillside I had painted, I totally understood the principle of the broad landscape, and that all these little shapes set on big forms. And it was the big form principle that I was sort of lacking in my early works. I remember I was only 24 then. And so all of a sudden, my head exploded with this. I understood it, and my work it just changed immediately. And so my Grand Canyons became, everything I was painting became much better. And it was in those 5 years I was in Taos, I was able to win several awards. I won the Stacy Scholarship, and that's when I formed my deepest relationships with my galleries. Trailside Galleries started handling my work. I got my first national magazine coverage, and so those are remarkable days for me.
What other breakthroughs did you have in your career? Did you ever have moments where things just sort of clicked into place for you?
There was, well, I will tell you, there was, what I discovered after writing the book is that you learn a lot about yourself when you write a book. That's all I can tell you. You learn a lot, but in retrospect, I could look back using my catalog raisonné and going back and revisiting. At first, I never wanted to revisit the 80s, and what I discovered is that those were the greatest times of my breakthroughs in my life were during the 80s, because I learned so much about myself during that time, because they were really hard. When I first moved to Sedona, I was very super depressed. And I was doing this pointillist thing. I got really super fat and overweight. And for me, it was really, I was like an extra 100 pounds in those days. And so I was really upset. But my paintings were doing this pointillist sort of thing. I don't know why, but it was my way to protect myself, and I was trying to save a marriage and all that sort of thing. But anyway, Then I moved on into the 80s, and then all of a sudden there was this HIV crisis that was happening in the United States, And I felt so bad for all those people who were getting sick. And my paintings got really, really soft, and they went through this really soft period. And those paintings were delicate, and I actually believe that they are the most profound period of my life now. But something happened that, so in 1998, my paintings, something happened to me, and I decided that I was angry. And so I started painting really, really large canvases outdoors and had a special easel made for it, and started working on these paintings that were painted with large, giant brushes, and well, for me, but long handle brushes and wide paint and lots of paint. I started to apply that to these canvases, and actually they were kind of remarkable because within a year's time they went from those soft, delicate paintings to these really big, broad paintings. And so that's kind of, but the whole point of this conversation is that every painting I've done is part of my emotional content. And so I think, isn't that what art is? That's what art should be. And so, anyway, all I can tell you is that the 90s were really happy for me. So it was a good time. I got into a really good headspace, and I started painting. I painted outdoors a great deal and loved it. And that's...
You mentioned the pointillist work.
Yeah.
You mentioned the softer work. In the 90s, did the work change again?
It became much more. There were several things going on in the 90s, and so I was doing. I went to Europe the first time in 1990, and so Danielle, let's just flip on through to Paris. Let's go by Paris. It's on here somewhere. There we are. And so I wanted to study Impressionism. Well, I was doing that anyway, but so I learned that Impressionism is really not about pretty gardens and trees. It's actually about what's in the air, and it's the quality of air. And then I moved into, I was painting and doing apple trees and all kinds of things at home and all this beautiful stuff. But then I went to Bali, and I had this desire, just like Gauguin or something, to want to go to see a foreign country and experience something really out of my range. And I discovered Bali, and it was magical. And my paintings came away. It changed my color palette, and I became very, very bold and started using primaries. And the paintings got really bright and beautiful. And then the galleries were saying, Curt, your paintings are too colorful now. And so, oh well, okay. And so then I went to Italy for 2 months and painted everywhere, and painted. I did lots of paintings in Italy, and the important thing, and I have to stress this. There is a when you're painting outdoors, there are these magical moments that happen when brushstrokes become the moment, and it tells you they live forever, these brushstrokes, and they can tell you who you were at that moment, what you were painting, why you were feeling, and so that's why artists paint plein air. And please understand that plein air paintings, painting on location, painting from life, is the only way you get them, and it's the only way that they have integrity in the future. So that's really my feeling about what happened to me, the change that was completely understood when I went to Europe.
That painting that was just on the screen of the Grand Canal in Venice, A lot of people have painted that. A lot of people have painted the canyon.
Yeah.
Do you enjoy sort of the history of standing in a place that other artists have stood in?
Oh, it's most important to me. I think I take it as a challenge. I want to paint what Sargent or Turner painted. I want to see those places and stand in those footsteps and see what I can do.
Although you did paint, you've painted all around the world. You're primarily known for your work in the Southwest. You've lived in two really remarkable cities in the Southwest, Taos and Sedona.
Yes.
Do those two places, did they sort of rub off on you in any particular way in your studio?
Absolutely. I will tell you, I think Taos had more influence on me than anywhere else. Moving to Taos was the most singular, smart thing I ever did. And because I met so many great artists, Rod Goebel, the great Rod Goebel, not too many people remember him now, but he was an amazing painter, and he would allow me to go paint with him. And I remember the humiliation of painting with Walt Gonski the first time, and how it was pretty naive, and you know, those brushstrokes would fly, and that color would fly, and that motion was there, and those guys gave me the sense of what art are supposed to be, and that you paint every day, and you go outdoors and you paint every day, and that was the trick to Taos. It was lovely.
So that's Taos. Tell us about Sedona. When did you move to Sedona?
I moved to Sedona in 1979, and for several reasons. My galleries were there. I wanted to be close to Grand Canyon, and I thought it would save my life. But it did save my life, but it just took 10 years for it to find out.
Of course, the red rock there.
Yeah, no, red rocks are beautiful. I painted so much of Sedona. I will tell you that the biggest motivation for me in Sedona is the for sale sign. And so whenever I see a for sale sign, I go paint that spot because I know it's not going to be there much longer. And so I've been really lucky to have lived in that sort of sleepy, wonderful little village. And I could just park and drive and paint, and I had it pretty much to myself for quite a while, and it was really quite lovely. It's not that way anymore, but you know, I mean, it's still beautiful, don't get me wrong, but you just have to work a little harder to get to the spots to go paint, and you know, the big canvas thing is not quite as easy, and anyway, there.
Is land conservation and development, is it a concern for you in that area?
Well, absolutely. You know, you do the best you can, but Sedona is just a different place, and now it's still lovely. Don't get me wrong. We have amazing, great friends, and I still love the community, and I still love I still love it. You know, I hate my studio, but I love the rest of it.
I feel like you can't say that, and then what's wrong with your studio?
Oh, it's small, little, cramped, and you know, it's got a certain amount of magic to it. You walk in the front door, and it is it has a magic about it because you see it when you come in the front door. You literally walk into my studio, and I think it puts everyone at ease, and they want to see what's on the easel, and they're entranced by it, and those of you who've been there, I'm sure you know what it's like. It's kind of cool, actually. But it's really small, and I keep breaking the skylight because I shove the canvas to the ceiling, and oh well.
Let's turn our attention a little bit to the Prix de West. I do want to ask about your first year as an artist, but let's go back even further. What was the first Prix de West show like? You were here as a visitor.
I was. Well, I was here as a first-time guest artist in 1989. It was pretty amazing. I had I had 4 big canvases, really nice. This one, it was called Winter Grand Reveal, and so I was delighted. My canvas is sold. I feel very welcomed here. I feel very nice. But then all of a sudden there was this tornado warning, and I think Ron, were you here, Ron? Were you there? Anyway, so there were a few artists here, and so this tornado came, and Ken Townsend gets on stage and says, and we'd all sat down for the banquet, and in this very room, and then all of a sudden they said, you got to go to the basement. So we went down to the basement, and everybody grabbed their wine bottles and ran off to the basement, and so we were down there for like 2 hours. And so we come back up here. Of course, the steaks are ice cold, and the salads are warm. And so we all sat down, and there was like a 60-watt bulb. It was like around here somewhere. Anyway, it was really dark. It was super dark. And so I'm listening to the speeches, and I'm listening to the stuff, and then in this dark, in this room, they announced that I had won the Buyer's Choice Award for my painting. And so I had to get up and give my acceptance speech with the foghorn. And I don't know how I did, but oh my God, it's still my favorite award. It's just like a magical moment in my life, and I'm very thankful for that.
I'd be curious to know, was anyone here that night? Any hands? I see one.
There are a few people here.
Terry Kelly Morris was here.
There's a few here.
Yeah, Sandy
there are
Scott.
a few here. Yeah, you remember it. Yeah, it was an awesome night. It actually turned out awesome.
That's remarkable. And did you always see this show as sort of the pinnacle for you? Was this the place you wanted to show your work?
Ever since I was a child, of course, my first view of NAWA, the Prix de West show, was in 1973, and I think a lot of my current heroes were born in that moment. Just because they were such great artists and such great painters. I soon made it my goal to try to be in here. The greatest thing that actually happened to me is that they told me no for 20 years. So, no, they really did. It actually was a gift to me, because I became a much better painter. I became a much smarter man, a smarter artist, and I wasn't ready for that show. I don't think youthful art, there's something, it's a hard thing to do when competition, you have to be careful with repetitiveness and all those sorts of things that only mature artists understand. And so they did me a favor, actually. I'm glad I didn't get in until later.
Did that help? That helped drove you as an artist?
It did. I learned all kinds of things because of it, and but I was really lucky that I won. I'd won a couple of Frederick Remington awards, but in 2007 I actually won the Prix de West award, the Purchase Award, and it's a really cool painting. It's called Spring's Caprice, but it was. You can go see it behind Lincoln down there, and but it was really remarkable that I got the chance to win that award and be part of this collection, because I had always wanted to do that. I think all of the artists here want that, and somehow or another I managed, and here I am. It's really good.
We were talking before we came out here, and you remember your speech very well. It was a momentous speech for you.
It was. There were a couple of things that happened. I'm afraid it was not very dignified, because there was. Don't take this wrong way, because everybody did at the moment. I thought it was funny. At noon, they tell you they announced the Prix de West award, and so I looked out and, okay, guys, you got to understand this story. I had been there was a long history with Wilson Hurley, and as a teacher he was completely remarkable, and taught me so much. But as a competitor, he was kind of an angry old bear, and so he had told me like 3 years before this that I was never going to win the Prix de West, okay. And so I'd had won the Prix de West, and so I got on stage and I said, na, 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 na. It's not very dignified. And so Tom Yale was yelling at me, you idiot. And so anyway, so I apologized that night. I did apologize that night. But the thing that was super remarkable about that time is that this first time that I'd ever introduced, I honestly, I felt at that moment compelled that I should mention Tom in my acceptance speech, and everyone really clapped and yelled, and they were very, very happy for that. And I was even more delighted. But then the second thing that really happened that evening is that I also won the Buyer's Choice Award for a second painting. And then I had nothing to say because I didn't know what to say. It was pretty crazy. It was really good. What a night. Oh, that painting at Ross Domain is 60 by 96, so it's pretty good size.
How did you get it here?
Well, in a truck. That painting came in a truck.
A big truck.
Came in a big old fat truck.
Let's talk a little bit about some of the other subjects that you've done. Not all landscapes. You found yourself painting conquistadors. When did that start, and what inspired that?
Well, there was tell you the story. I had been painting in Europe with John and Terry Moyers, and we had visited Italy, and then we went down to Toledo in Spain to paint, and I saw this armor and this great stuff, and thought it was very, very cool and fun, and we had this remarkable trip. It was a remarkable painting trip. And then I came home, and I had a dental appointment, and the doctor says, well, I think you have cancer. And so I got really scared, and I had a few days in which I really thought I was going to, this was it. And so I was trying to accept my life, and I thought, well, what am I going to paint? And of course, the answer was, I'm going to paint conquistadors. Well, I'd always wanted to do it. I just had never done it, and I tried one when I was quite young, but I find it a fascinating period of American history in which the conquistadors in 1540 came to the Grand Canyon in search of their ships, actually coming up the Colorado River. That was a fallacy of mistakes. Anyway, but I just find it fascinating that they were the first Europeans to see Grand Canyon and the stories behind it. And so I decided that I want to paint conquistadors. And so the first thing I did was go out and start buying armor, back to Spain. And I bought tons of armor and all kinds of crazy stuff. This painting is of my studio as I unloaded it for the first day and thought it would be when those crates arrived from Italy. From Toledo. And so since then I've been painting, I've done several drawings and paintings on location of the guys, but this is, painting in the studio is kind of a easier way to do it than painting on location. And so, but I've done several drawings and studies. I find whatever possesses me, but I continue to go on to the next studying. The study has led me to all kinds of wonderful places in the world, like Vienna and all parts of Spain and Mexico, and wherever there's a collection of armor, I go. Oh, I was just in Italy last year, and so I painted. I went to, 2 years ago, I was in Florence, and they have a great museum there for the Stibbard Museum, and I spent 2 days sketching in that museum. And then I went to, this last year, when we were printing the book in Italy, I went to this incredible museum. It's called it's the Armor Museum in Brescia. it was Italy, Brescia, Italy, and so they let me go paint, actually stand in there and paint that day, and so it was a great thing, you know, paint. I mean, I love this. Okay, I love this stuff, guys, and so I know, and no, I don't sleep in armor, but I have a lot of it. I have a lot of it now.
The thought of you going, you probably have these things shipped back, but the thought of your suitcase clanking through security is...
Well, we've had a few moments. We've had a few moments, but yeah, so that's kind of what I'm into these days, and you know, it's just, it's pretty cool, so.
I do think it's interesting how you found a way to incorporate both the Southwest and this material that would have been here. I mean, they do overlap in a very unique way.
Absolutely, they overlap. We have to remember that the Spanish conquistadors came to America. Almost all of southern United States, they had explored. The Coronado expedition not only went to the Grand Canyon, but they also came across they were in Albuquerque, they went through the Great Plains of Texas and into Kansas, and some think that they went as far north as Chicago. So, I mean, this is kind of amazing thing to think that they were doing this in 1540 and 41. So, and they were traveling all over the United States. And from the south, DeSoto was coming, anyway, they were coming in from Florida the other direction and coming across to the Mississippi. So we have this long history of it's not a singular, it is an American thing to think about the Spanish in the United States. I'm not saying they did all great things, because they didn't. I mean, they were pretty cruel, but they had very, very cruel moments. But they did leave a legacy, and they did change our United States. So,
let's talk a little bit about the process that went into making the book. It required a lot of retrospective on your part. You had to look back. Was that comfortable for you, or were those happy memories?
Not always. Not always. I can't say all of the moments were happy, but I discovered that every one of those, all those, I painted through every emotion that I have, and the answer always came out on the canvas, and so they all reflected what I was feeling at the time. Some of them are very sad paintings, and some of them are very, very happy paintings. I think the trick is that if you have a good composition and you've done your best to put your soul on that canvas, people recognize it and they feel it and they want them.
Did you think at all about what your legacy might be in the art world, or do you want to leave that for others?
I will leave that for others. I'll just leave it. I don't know. Honestly, don't know. I can tell you that I've done something kind of, I think I've done something remarkable in that I've done more paintings of Grand Canyon than probably anyone, and it's become my subject. I explore in the book I explore the rivers and the trails and the seasons of Grand Canyon and all those nuances of color and moments that I have seen and felt, and I think it's a great record of Grand Canyon as I've seen it in the last 50 years.
Is there anything that you still haven't painted of the Grand Canyon?
Yes. Sublime Point.
It's a big place.
Well, in the studio, I've painted, like I said, 25 of them outside, but I haven't yet done a big studio painting of it. I have the stretcher bars. Does that count? I don't know.
Do you still paint on location at the canyon?
Yeah, all the time. All the time. Oh yeah. For the book, I did a limited edition set of that go with the book. But anyway, it's nothing but little plein air Grand Canyons, and so I spent a lot of time painting abatins, which is kind of like, not me actually. I like a little bigger canvas, but I've done a whole bunch of abatins this year, this last year, 2 years.
One of the things that's always struck me about you is you really feel in touch with the work. Does the shows and the business of art, does that kind of, I know you have Tom to help you, but do you, it seems like you really are so focused on the art that all of the other things feel sort of meaningless.
It's okay. It's really hard to handle. I take one day a week and try to focus on the business side of the stuff. And I have my assistant Danielle, and she's remarkable, and she takes care of me. And we get all that, I try to do all that stuff that deals with the business side of art. So anyway, the answer is, I will not answer you unless it's Friday. So that's kind of, because that's the only day I'm going to deal with it.
Tell us, I'm seeing the book cover on the screen here. Tell us what resilience means to you.
Resilience came about, that was my grandson Damien actually wrote the book. And so that was his title. He wanted to call it that. And he felt like there was enough of, there were so many ups and downs in my stories about resilient, coming from those down times to the happy times is the story of the book, actually. And this is a very personal book, and it's not like most art books. It really is a story of my life, and it has I delve deep into all of my emotions and why I painted what I painted, and so it was kind of a hard book to I questioned deeply whether I should tell these stories, and at the end I decided that I would, and I'm not going to be here too much longer anyway. So but I answer those questions that I always ask when I'm reading a biography of an artist, and so that's what I tried to do.
We talked about Wilson Hurley earlier, and he's sort of a foil in your book. He comes up again and again, but your last meeting with him was really a moment for you. Talk about your last time you met with Wilson.
I will tell you, it was right after I won the Prix de West, and I had won that great award for the Buyer Choice Award, and sorry, it does make her cry. He came up and hugged me, congratulated me, and told me I'd done a good job. Sorry.
And there's a photo in the book of you two. I think that everyone should pick one up so they can see it because it's really wonderful. He's smiling and you're there. It's really remarkable.
Yeah, no, I really was crying. What you don't know is that he was ill then, and so there you go.
Tell us a little bit about what you're working on next.
Oh, I have a number of projects going on, but I'm answering a few of those things that I haven't done. Point Sublime, okay, it's on the way. Point Sublime. I'm working on a painting right now of it's actually Cedar Ridge, which is this painting, the same view that Wilson painted over here in this Grand Canyon triptych. But it's a little more, it's looking a little to the other direction. But okay, so I have to get Tom a shape so he can carry my paint set for me, so we can go down to this point, because I didn't like the foreground that I have started, so we're going to go down and look for a new foreground. So anyway, that's my next project, but that's going to happen like maybe next week. Anyway, okay. So, but there's still several views I haven't painted. It's like there's a view from up. I'm going to paint from the reservation side of Grand Canyon coming across. But I also am working on my conquistador thing, and I have it pretty well planned in my head. I think I know what I want, and I'm getting approached there. And so the next thing is to find guys with horses that want to dress up like conquistadors. So we'll see. We'll see what happens.
I mentioned those pictures earlier of you on the edge. Were those done, like, did they know you were doing that, or you just had to sneak out there and do those?
Sometimes, a couple of times, the Rangers have said, come back. You're like, don't do that. But if you sneak off to a little ways, you can get right on out there. Yeah. I've only had a couple of times. As a matter of fact, I was painting with Matt Smith and Joe Abracia and some people. Anyway, my canvas, up at Grand Canyon, it was a great trip, but it was in like a March time, and the wind came gushing by, and my canvas went flying off down in there. It was pretty, that was kind of bad. Anyway, but I did have a time when I was painting over near Pipe Springs, but anyway, South Rim. But the canvas, my easel, I was using a French easel then, and anyway, something happened, screw came loose, and it was flopping around, and so I'm trying to catch it, and all of a sudden I realized that I am like right here, and I thought, well, okay, maybe I'm too old to do this, but it was kind of like one of those moments.
For any adventurous soul, there is a Curt Walters painting somewhere that they can go get if they're brave enough.
If they're brave enough, it's right off Pima Point. It's down there somewhere on the bottom. Well, I told the Rangers about it, and they said, well, okay. Yeah, we're not going after it.
You've worked with the Grand Canyon National Park and some of the trusts that are associated with the park for a number of years. Tell us a little bit about your work with them. I know that they have work in the visitor center, is that correct?
They do. They have, all of for several years, I would give paintings actually to the Grand Canyon Trust, which they hung at Eldivore Lodge, and they sold many of them actually, and so I'm very proud of those kind of moments when those canvases went out in the world, and it was helping with their causes at the Grand Canyon Trust. I also got involved with, and we did a number of things. The river trip in '99 with the artist, and a show that happened at the Forbes Gallery in New York. Following that was all part of that whole river trip thing, and we got great national news. There was CBS Sunday Morning, all kinds of stuff happened, and so that ended up being a really great fundraiser for the trust. But then I also we did some prints which went out, and so I would hustle up money for the trust. Anyway, that's what I was doing, and so then I got involved with the Grand Canyon Foundation, which is it's a different kind of aspect of it was a branch of what they call the Conservancy now, and so we would raise private funds for Grand Canyon infrastructure. And one of the things that we did is that knocking on doors, a lot of knocking on doors then, but they built wheelchair accessible trails around Grand Canyon, and they are used by more people than you would think. And so it makes it convenient for people to be. Part of the concept is that people can get out and walk the trails easily, and walk on the rim, and have access, and they don't have to, to cut down on the car traffic, and so that sort of thing. Not good for big plein air paintings, but anyway, it's really good for if you're loving the day.
I'm going to ask an abstract question before we turn this over to our audience here. Why do you keep doing this? What makes you get up in the morning and want to keep painting?
The answer is because that's what I do. I don't have an answer for that. It's my instinct to do it. I just do it because I have to do it. I want to do it. And it really doesn't matter where I am or what's happening. I want to paint that day where I am, and I'm really happy just to go paint or go draw I'm just happy to be there, and so I'm good. I'm just good.
That's good to hear. I think we're going to open it up now to some questions.
Yeah,
we have about
absolutely.
15 minutes. If anyone would like to ask a question, and I certainly hope they do, because you have interesting answers for things. Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. But yeah, don't be afraid of a question.
While we wait for someone to get to that mic, I'm going to ask you, do you have a national park that you paint sort of your number two?
Oh, number two. Shoot, you know, I travel all the time. I mean, I love Yosemite. I love Zion. I go to those places a lot. You know, I discovered, one of the odd things I discovered is that when I was doing the catalog resume and adding up, you know, my daughter did all this stuff and she figured it all out and laid it all out. And it turns out that I actually ended up, I know this is crazy, a whole bunch of paintings of California. And so I've painted a lot in California over the years. And the second place that I paint the most is actually northern Arizona. And then New Mexico. So those are kind of my haunts, and that's where I spend a great deal of my time. And just always have. But California, go figure. Yes, Sandy, hi. I'm sorry?
Have you ever taught workshops?
Oh, yeah, I teach workshop. And the question was, do I teach workshops? I will be doing, well, not very often. I do them on occasion. I'm going to be, I am receiving the, I know this is, I'm receiving the Plein Air Painters Honors next year, Plein Air Magazine, in May, and so I will be actually doing a lecture and teaching a workshop in St. George, Utah, and in Zion. So yeah, that's coming up in May. Yeah.
Excellent. We might have a question back there. We have a mic walking around.
Thank you for your honesty and kind of revealing yourself. When I saw your work, I didn't know you did other work till I saw the Spanish Conquistadors in 2015.
Oh yeah.
So it's very interesting to know that you went to Bali and Venice, and you said you're going to do the Spanish again.
I am. I'm working on this canvas. I haven't stretched the canvas yet. I'm looking for a studio space actually to paint it. But it's going to be rather big, and it will be very complicated. I know Ron's looking at me saying, "You don't do this stuff. How do you do this?" No, he's saying like, "You're a crazy man, Curt. You don't know how to do this." Well, I'm going to figure it out. But anyway, rather large canvas, and I want it to be of Cardenas. He was the fellow that led a group of the Coronado II exhibition, 25 mounted conquistadors and servants that came across through the Hopi Reservation and went up to see Grand Canyon in September of 1540. And so I know the spot that I've picked out because they have figured out that he was on the South Rim, somewhere between Desert View and Moran Point. And so I've selected a place that I want to stage this event. And so I've had the guys come up there and model for me several times, but I've not yet. So I will have to. You can't actually put a horse up there, so I will have to figure out how to. I'll stage that up. I'll get that figured out. But anyway, so that's kind of what I'm working on. I want to do this view of these mounted and Discovery Grand Canyon things. That's what I'm after. Now, what am I going to do with it? I haven't a clue. I don't know.
What's your emotion on this one?
I'm sorry.
What's your emotion on this one?
I think, I'll tell you, I think that okay, so the writings from the Coronado expedition say that they consider Grand Canyon to be a barrier and an obstacle to their to their exploration. And that's what they write. But you and I know, and everyone that's been to the Grand Canyon know, that when you see the Grand Canyon for the first time, you're overwhelmed by its beauty and its awe. And I have no doubt in my soul that that's what they felt when they got there. And I think that's the emotion that I'll try to express.
What's your process of naming your paintings?
That question was, what is the process of naming my paintings? Well, I start with first of all, it's about what I feel about the painting to start with. And then I will sit down with Danielle, Danielle, where are you? She's around here somewhere. Anyway, and we sit down and we start talking about what I'm feeling about this painting and words that will describe. So they're not about, it's not subject matter. My titles come from the way I feel about it. And I must always try to do that. Sometimes the titles get kind of long, but anyway, that's where they come from.
I think it's interesting too that the Grand Canyon has so many interesting places. They all have unique names. You could name a new painting on a location and have plenty of things.
No, it's true. It's true. Most of the it's fascinating how so it was actually Clarence Dunton who named most of the major pigs during the Powell expedition, and so they have names, like some of them are Egyptian names, and it's like Isis's name and Ra is a name, and all these temples. But then there's also points which were named mostly afterwards, rim views which are named mostly for Indian tribes actually, and so that's kind of so there's an Indian heritage to the names and along the rim, and that's kind of how it's fascinating. So yeah. And they all have some sort of importance about them.
Curt, we've known each other a long time. Carolyn here.
Yes.
Right here.
There you are. Hi, Carolyn.
Anyway, I have one thought for you. Get a blue screen and put your horses on it with the models, and then you can impose them and move them over the
move
canyon.
them around. Oh well,
Yeah.
I don't know how I'm going to do it.
Well, if my husband was here, he'd say congratulations.
Oh.
Any more?
Any more questions? I'd be happy to answer anything. I'm an open book.
Oh, there we go. We got one.
Very basic. Do you start out with a painting and at some point go, well, I guess this is going to be impressionist because I made a mistake? Because I see a lot of realism and then some that are very abstract. So is there a point where you go, I think I'll change the style and move here?
They kind of tell you who they're going to be when I start painting. I don't know how that happens, but they do. The more impressionist works usually come from my plein air paintings, and I don't know if every show I've ever done here has a plein air painting in it. They something that I started on location, and I've never failed to do that. But as I'm painting, they start to tell me what they're going to be. I don't actually start off with I think I start off with a vision, but of course it's gone soon because it turns into something else. They always kind of tell you what they're going to be. And so sometimes they're very impressionistic, sometimes I get noodled into something else, and who knows? The answer is I try to let them become what they need to be. I know that sounds very esoteric, but that's the truth. Anyone else?
this is related to the last question, but I'm an artist who
Yes.
feels comfortable painting large pieces, and my style has generally large brushstrokes. When I go down to an 8 by 10, I'm lost. So, what kind of advice? I know that you paint small, and I've seen some of your small paintings that are very detailed. So,
Yeah.
what is your philosophy translating your large work into smaller works?
Well, it's actually sort of reverse from that. I actually like the smaller works have a tendency to inform the large ones. And but it is difficult for me to paint that size. I do find it kind of hard. I like a little bit bigger canvas. You know, it's like, I'm really good at like a 14-14. I kind of like starting painting outdoors that size. But 8 by 10s are I mean, they're a tiny bit confining for me. But anyway, but the answer is that there's an amazing thing that happens with the small canvas when you look at when you look at the stuff that's happening on a smaller canvas, with as far as your brushstrokes and your color and your immediate response to nature or to whatever you're painting. It informs the big one in a way that you can't do any other way, and that's the way I look at it. Okay, Terry, tell me something important. I know.
How much has travel and going, I think this has been answered, but maybe you can add to it a bit. Travel and seeing some of the great art museums in other parts of the world informed what we do.
Hugely important. Hugely. The answer is hugely important. That's the great Terry Moyers asking that question, one of the greatest painters in America right now. And so I have visited museums with her pretty much all over the world now. Pretty amazing. But yes, the answer is hugely important. There's when you walk into like the Sorolla Museum and Home and Museum, and you look at that paint and you look at those paintings and you want to cry because they're so beautiful, and then you cry because you can't do it. And so, you know, I mean, those kinds of things really stick in your head, and very, very important. Yes. So, but I'm just touched. You know, the first time. This is a true story. The first. Okay, so I was painting. I was about 14 years old. I'd been painting a tiny bit, and I only had Farmington art to look at, and only my stuff my dad had done, which was pretty novice. But anyway, so my brother was this cowboy guy and rodeo kid, and so he wanted to come see the new Cowboy Hall of Fame, which just opened here in 1965 or 64, whenever it was. And I'm going, oh my God, not another cowboy. Oh God, you know. And so we walk in this museum, and the first thing hanging in the hall, right out here, was Thomas Moran's Mountain of the Holy Cross. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but I just started bawling. I couldn't believe that someone could paint that way and how beautiful that painting was. And so that kind of feeling has never left me. You know, when I walked in and saw one of the Monets one time, I started crying. So art affects me that way. And so great art creates great emotions. And you're sitting among some of the greatest painters in America today, and they bring out emotion in their canvas, and you see it and you feel it, and don't you agree? It's pretty amazing. The show is really amazing.
We probably have time for one more if anyone would like to ask one more question. Otherwise, looks like we do got one more. Here we go.
Hi, Curt. It's
Hi.
Lisa. Would you please tell that story about your dad had the dental office, and the lady, the gallery owner from Taos had the broken tooth and stopped by. Would you tell that story?
No, it's so funny. It's just, sometimes there's things that happen in your life that's just a stroke of good luck and greatness. I was 20 years old. I had work hanging in my father's dental office. He was a dentist in Farmington. And so this gallery dealer by the name of Thelma Dodson had a broken tooth, and she was visiting friends in Farmington. So she went to my dad to have this tooth repaired. And while she's there, she's looking around at my paintings, and she says, "Well, I have a gallery in Taos, and maybe you'd like to show my gallery." And so Dad says, "Well, of course." And so Dad picks up the phone, called me, and says, "Here, this Thelma's coming over to see you." And so she rushed over to the studio, and she saw my painting. She says, "I'll give you a try." And that's when life really changed for me. And she started selling my work in Taos, New Mexico. And that was a great stroke of luck. And it was all over a broken tooth. There you go.
Ladies and gentlemen, Curt Walters.
Thank you. Thank you much. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Curt.
Thank you. Thank you much. Thank you all for being here. Thank you.